All right, what's up, guys? A lot of you guys was asking me to check out. It was I don't know. There's like people were saying like, oh, you should watch the like life story of sweet Anita, and my thing is like I'm just overall just gonna react to this just I guess to learn more. But I'm just letting people know like, hey yo, I'm not offended by like that because I know there was like the one video that I reacted to, and I think in that video I said like I didn't care, like that's like something that's like it's far out of my power, like I can't do anything about it, like the girl has Tourette syndrome, like you gonna say certain things, and then based off of what people are telling me, it's like people be I guess people would like type it in chat and then she sees it and then she overall like she says it like it like triggers her like Tourette's and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, it's like I'm not gonna hold that against her. I ain't gonna have an ill feeling. I'm like, she could be I could be there like face to face with her. If she says it, she says it. Like I ain't like it doesn't. And then on top of that, I know they were saying like I think she said her somebody in her like or she has like she is like mixed with black. Like I think she said it was her dad or somebody. But anyways, yeah, I'm like, bruh, it don't at the end of the day, like I'm gonna accept this girl for who she is. It don't really matter to me what conditions and stuff she got going on with her. It's like she's living with it, so I'm like everybody else should live with it. It's like people getting on her about a condition. It's like, fam, you try being in her shoes for 24 hours, just 24 hours, guaranteed there's gonna be things that triggers you, like, and the thing is though, be in her shoes for 24 hours but experience her whole life having Tourette's, like, yeah, like y'all wouldn't last. All right, so the fact that she's able to, let me see if this, because sometimes, okay, it ain't gonna start. The fact that she's able to like just to turn this into something, she's not hiding this from the world, like that's good. That's honestly, that's like some motivational story type stuff, like some you think that it should be in the movies, but like we getting to see, like we're seeing this live, we're seeing this like for real. So yeah, I'm like, to me personally, I'm like, hey, more power to her. It's like I could care less what she says. I'm like, she ain't got no control over it, so she's living with it. We can everybody else can live with it. But
A lot
anyways,
of people,
let's go ahead and get into this video. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Lad Bible TV for more videos like this. But anyways,
who have Tourette's tend to report that they have fewer tics or none during sex. But the thing about that is, that's because it engages your focus. So that only applies to good sex, which is really brutal because I've never hurt a guy's ego more than simply going during an intimate moment.
How long have you had Tourette's?
As far back as I can remember, if I'm honest. I mean, I actually had noticeable tics before I was speaking.
hmm,
So, probably at least since the age of 1 or 2.
dang.
Weirdly, I would not stop saying Michael Schumacher. I have no idea why. But I'd also wolf whistle, so I'd quite often go. And it was so clear and loud that nobody thought it was me because I was a toddler. So people thought it was my mum, and they'd think she was hitting on them. So yeah, she's like, "Could you stop doing that?" Because burly builder men and stuff would come and hit on her when she didn't want them to. You say silly things as a
Dang.
kid, and people don't really think too much of it. But I did swear a lot, and people did raise an eyebrow at my parents because of it. But off. It was pretty much not that much of a problem until I got old enough that people started to be like, "Why is this still happening?" I went to the doctor. I was like, "My arm keeps doing this thing, and I'm not asking it to, and sometimes I say stuff I don't mean to." And the doctor was like, "Do you hear voices?" I was like, "No." "Do you think you have magical powers?" "No." "Do you see things that aren't there?" "No." And so they're like,
I'm
"Well,
like, do you think you have magical powers? I'm like, maybe he thought that she might have been on drugs or something. That's why, because I'm like, I guess like somebody on drugs, they be all like, oh yeah, there was this one time where I like threw my hand and some lightning came. They're like, okay, drugs. But I'm like, I guess now I'm like, yeah, now you play out that illusion, then it makes sense. But anyways,
you seem like you've got a perfectly functional mind. You're probably just attention seeking and you'll grow out of it." And I got told
What?
this about 3 or 4 times, and it was really frustrating. And I felt really afraid to engage with people because I thought they'd think I was attention seeking, and I thought they'd automatically hate
I'm
me.
like, what kind of? Okay, yeah. Now I'm like gone back to that. I was going to say that with the magical question. Now I'm like, that don't sound like a professional doctor. That don't sound like a professional doctor where it's like, oh, you're just attention seeking. You'll grow out of it. It's like, fam, I'm grown now. Like, I'm grown now. Like, this stuff's been going on my whole life. There ain't no attention seeking. It's like, I feel like attention seeking is like you're going to be playing out like an act of some sort. You're going to be doing something far more dramatic. I feel like some stuff like this, it's not, I'm not going to say it's not dramatic, but I just feel like in the sense of like, doing things for attention, I just feel like that's something that you wouldn't, like, I guess you wouldn't do for attention. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, I grew up with people that would do things for attention, and I just don't see, like that being like, especially she started off like, her, if she's like, I think she said if her like arm is making movements or it's like something's going on. I'm like, it doesn't sound like attention seeking. I'm like, fam, what is you talk? Yeah, that doctor. I'm like, them doctors, they need to lose their jobs. I don't think they know what they were talking about. But anyways,
Me. So I was terrified of interacting with people after that. There wasn't really that much of a problem until I tried to go into conventional schooling. So, when I started to try real school, I had a lot of barriers. I couldn't explain while I was talking, just shouting over the teachers. I quite often insulted other students, and it kind of all ended with me being beaten unconscious by a bunch of sixth formers when I was about 12 or 13. And I was like, well, there's no point getting an education if you're not going to have a future to use it in. So I ended up going back into home education after that.
wow, dang, that's crazy.
Devastating to see that I kept hurting people's feelings, and people kept pushing me away, and people kept kept judging me, and I kept hurting the people around me that I really cared about. Even my mum, I used to pinch her on the back of the arm. I didn't understand why I couldn't always control my actions and why they were so self-sabotaging. I was incredibly depressed. I ended up depressed for 13 years. I was not only socially phobic, but also socially inept. I was really awkward and terrified of people. Never liked to even make eye contact. That was terrifying. It just made me a recluse. I became agoraphobic. It was so difficult to get a start in life because I just became really socially phobic of people.
There's some scars on the arm. Was that something that was during this period of depression?
Well, that all started when I was about 8 or 9. And I didn't think that anyone would ever know that I did it. And I don't mind talking about it because I'm not ashamed. And I didn't realize that anyone would find out or know, or anyone would judge me for it because I was a child and I was always alone. So, yeah, I never knew that I was going to have to face judgment and misconceptions about it. In the end, I found healthier ways of coping, but nobody shows you that when you're 9. So this was what I did. And yeah, luckily.
Yeah, it's like I feel like dealing with something like that as a kid, it sounds extremely difficult because it's people are going to see it as like, oh, it's like probably, yeah, there probably will be people out there thinking that you are attention seeking. I guess like now I'm thinking about it, but it's like in your head that that's not the case, like something is wrong. So yeah, dang, that's messed up. That's really messed up. And it's like, that's the type of stuff where it's like, you kind of, I always think that I'm like, I know I ain't got no control or power over, like, when people have to deal with things like that. But it's like, I just always think, like, man, I wish I could have at least, like, been there, been a friend or somebody, like, to just let a person know, like, hey, you're not alone. Like, I just want to, like, have that environment. I feel like that just would be a extremely like beautiful environment, is overall just being like surrounded by people where it's like we got our problems, but others, like the ones that we're surrounded by, can accept us, so if there is ever a day where I do meet sweet Anita, highly doubt it. I'm like, I don't think that ever happened, but if there is ever a day and she's like dealing with it, I'm like, fam, you ain't alone. It's like we all got our issues. We all got our problems. I'll tell you right now, I've had my issues and problems when I was a kid. Sure, I could sit down, probably do one of these interviews and just talk about my whole life, and it's gonna, it's just something that people can relate to, and I'm pretty sure everybody that's watched this video, it's like they relate to her. So I know that there's people out there, it's like they've dealt with her problems, like where they have Tourette's, tics, whatever, and they're just like, like, okay, and I feel like this interview is like perfect, because it's like that's just letting other people know, it's like, hey, you're not alone. Like, you could watch this girl, see how she handles it, and turn like turn it into something, turn it into something where it's gonna motivate those around you. So I honestly like see her like, she's like, and I guess like I don't know if I'm like, if I should say something like this, but I do feel like that, it was like meant for her to have these like tics and Tourette's and things, because at the end of the day, like, she built up the courage to start up, like, or become a content creator and inspire a lot of people around her. Like, you've inspired millions of people around you, and they're learning to live with their tics and Tourette's and all of that stuff. So it's like, at the end of the day, like, you turned something like that, a lot of people just seen it as something like, I feel like crazy shouldn't be the word for it, but it's like you turned like something negative into something positive. So at the end of the day, she did something good here.
Don't do it anymore. It took quite a few years to get over it and figure out better ways, but yeah, like I said, I'm not ashamed that I got through it. I didn't really know how to explain myself. I didn't know there was a word for what I was, and I eventually had heard of Tourette syndrome, but I had such a stereotype in my head of what it was that I never thought that could apply to me. So my stereotype of Tourette syndrome was that it was only swear words, that you always shouted them, that it couldn't ever be complex. And the things that I was doing when I was alone were complex. Sometimes I'd sit there and I'd just go, I killed 52,000 men. And that doesn't seem to fit with the idea of someone just shouting one random word over and over. There were certain situations where it didn't happen, and I didn't know why. When I interact with animals, when I'm caring for someone, I don't tick as much. When I whistle, I don't tick at all. And when I focus and fixate on something without distraction, the tics go away. Weirdly, maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but I'm gonna anyway. Sex is one of those things. And a lot of people who have Tourette's tend to report that they have fewer tics or none during sex. But the thing about that is, that's because it engages your focus. So that only applies to good sex, which is really f***ing brutal, because I've never hurt a guy's ego more than simply going during an intimate moment. And I have had tics. Like, I punched a dude in the dick.
Oh, wow.
He stayed with me for 5 years after that, so he was a champ. In my early 20s, I was like, I've had enough.
Oh, man, that is... Oh, man, I'm like, that's... it's something that you shouldn't laugh at, but dang, man, that's crazy. That's wild. Dang, I'm like, that is wild. That is some wild. And then it's like, then to just get punched too well, I'm like, I don't know if it was the same guy or whatever, but it's like, I feel like it's like, you're getting like all intimate with your woman, and out of nowhere, it's like halfway, like during the interaction, you just feel like just immediate pain. And I'm like, fam, what did I do? Then it's like, the tics. Okay, I understand. I'm like, all right, so just give me about 5 minutes so I could just, regain like consciousness and my like the rest of my body, because that's an automatic shutdown. So I'm like, man, that is wild. But anyways.
This is definitely involuntary. This is definitely not attention seeking. I do it when I'm alone.
Yeah.
I know it's not about other people. And I went to the hospital and I was like, I really need this diagnosed. I want a life. So I had some brain scans. They tested for copper in my urine. That's why they gathered a week's worth of pee. Because
Wow.
copper poisoning can cause involuntary movements and actions too, and can look like tics. And so this is why anyone who experiences something they suspect is a tic should definitely go to the doctor, because you never know, it could be something incredibly serious. And so they ruled out a lot of things, and they asked a lot of questions on the kind of psychology side as well. I remember that. So I ended up being about 27 when I finally got the piece of paper that says you have Tourette syndrome, and my life started. And I got a job, I got an explanation, and I got friends, and everything started for me. Because the minute an involuntary and offensive action has an explanation, people can connect with you and relate to you. cats is one of my longest tics. I had it ever since I was little. It started as caterpillar and then for some reason got abbreviated to cats along the way. And unfortunately, if you shout cat when someone's driving, they slam the brakes. And so we almost had an accident. And now, whenever I get in a taxi, off, I end up having to say, hi, I have Tourette syndrome. If I shout cats, don't slam the brakes. If I offer you a fisting, don't try to take me up on the offer. And usually people take that really well, and it's a conversation starter. Whereas if I say nothing, then bad things can end up happening because of misunderstanding.
That's something I'm like, I feel like when somebody brings up like some something that they got going on in their life, and I'm like, oh, okay, well then let's sit down and talk about that real quick. Just I guess to like let the person know like, hey, I'm a chill, laid back person. Like I'm just like in an automatic like comfort zone. Join me in this comfort zone. Here, just sit down for a second. Just tell me your whole life story. That's the type of interactions I be having with people. I'm like, they tell me some stuff like this. Like I've never been a person with Tourette's, and I'm like, yeah, if I ever did, I'm like, hey, sit down, tell me your life story. Just let me know of the whole situation. I want to hear this, okay? I want to hear the funny things. I want to hear the crazy things. I want to hear the shocking, embarrassing, all of it. The whole story from like front cover to back, okay? Even the little text that be at the bottom of the back cover. I want to hear it all. Details, all right?
And so what I've kind of learnt is if I preempt this, I have a funny conversation starter and I get chatting with people. After I got my diagnosis, it felt like it wasn't my fault, and there was no amount of therapy. And there was no amount of like restraint, and there was no amount of anything.
It's like it's just a lot, like off your conscious about this. Like you ain't like trying to spend your whole life like trying to figure out this. Like you figure it out, so it's like now everything is cool.
That from happening, and it wasn't because of me, and it wasn't because I was a terrible person, which was really freeing. Like I felt like I'd been carrying all this guilt because I just didn't know how to make it stop, and yeah, that I kind of feel like it lifted a tremendous burden just to know why.
So you're a Twitch streamer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's in some ways a strange move for someone who's got Tourette's to move into what is a live entertainment platform.
Yeah.
Where there's no editing. Can you just tell us again how that came about?
So, I used to play a game called Overwatch online on the PC. And the reason why I did that was because I discovered push to talk. You hold down the button, you speak, you lift it up, no one can hear you. Oh my god, for the first time people knew me before they knew I had Tourette's. People didn't get confronted with any threats, any ass slapping, anything involuntary, anything rude. They just heard me. And I loved it. And I got so much confidence from making friends with people before they found out about my condition. I got chatty. I talked to anyone just because it was so nice to be a person and not a person with Tourette's. And that made me hell of a less terrified of conversations and eye contact, that's for sure. But after that, I still had anxiety. I think most people get a bit nervous in social situations, but over time I felt more and more comfortable with myself, and I felt more and more comfortable being challenged and getting out of my comfort zone. And I've also discovered that there's a lot more acceptance than I expected. I didn't know enough about streaming for me to have any expectations that it would go anywhere. I thought a big streamer was someone with 100 viewers, and I think the most I've ever had looking at me at once is about 30,000. Yes, it's live, and lots of people are very angry that it's live. They're like, you can't help what you say things that are very hurtful. What if people don't want to hear these hurtful things? How could you force that on them? Go on a delay. And it's like, well, chat interaction is completely ruined. You can't interact with people live if they have to wait 5 minutes for you to even see the comment and decide to respond to it.
I feel like, okay, I guess like to respond to that, because I'm like, I feel like the one thing I think everybody will probably think that I would be more offended by is, I guess I wasn't there for that. I just remember like, watching the video of her talking on it. But when she said the N-word during a stream, I know of her condition. I guess like maybe if I didn't know of her condition, but the thing is like, I knew of like Tourette's. Like it wasn't like I discovered what Tourette syndrome was like when I, discovered Sweet Anita. I knew of Tourette syndrome like long before. I was watching things like on TV about it, other like YouTube videos about it. I think there's of course, like I'm pretty sure we all remember the one dude, the Tourette's guy, back like in the like kind of like somewhat early days of YouTube. But even then, there was like an actual serious situation of a guy that had Tourette's, and he was like, I think the viral video of him was when I think he slapped his mom across the face or punched her in the face or something. And that's when I knew like, oh, this is this is a real thing. This is like, this is something. And I'm like, this isn't, like what the Tourette's guy, like that was just only for comedy. Like, nah, this can be a real situation. So if I would have like, I guess like, speaking, if I've been like that in the shoes of a person that just joined her stream, and it happened to be the same day where she just randomly, like, like we're not randomly, but it's like she blurted out the N word, and I'm like, okay, well, something ain't right with that. Like, let me, I guess do some like background history or like, figure out what's going on. Why did she just randomly blurt out the N word? Like, what's up with that? And then like seeing into it and be like, oh, she got Tourette's. Oh, okay. Well, I'm like, I can't be mad at her. Oh, that stuff. Oh, that's out the window. So how I felt about it today would have been the same way I felt about it if I was there for the first time, watching her, and that happened to be the day. It's like, she ain't got like, like her tics, Tourette's, all of that stuff. Like, it happens. Like, that's the side effects of it. But anyways,
gonna do what I want and act like I'm everyone else, equal to everyone else, and have every right to interact with people the same way everyone else does, until Twitch bans me, which is what I expected to happen. I have the N-word tick, unfortunately. The thing is, context matters. I kind of feel like I put in the title of pretty much everything I create online that I have Tourette syndrome. No one's hearing any of this against their will. They are warned. And the thing with that is, as well, not only are they warned, but context matters. So if swear words in and of themselves are so terrible that nobody should ever have to hear them, and anything that contains them should be banned, we have to ban the dictionary and Wikipedia.
Yep.
Context matters. It's so obvious. And because I'm not trying to denigrate anyone or hurt anyone, the reason I've been let off is to allow access for people with disabilities. And that's why I'm still here, and I'm really glad that the platform has the clarity to recognize that and let me be a part of all this.
When you think back to 15, why does that make you feel that how
I don't know. I would have never expected it. I'd have never thought it was possible. This is not where I expected to be. I think I've got a little way more to go before I'll be proud, but I'm pretty content, and that's enough.
Is there anything that you want to say that we haven't covered?
Off.
Snowballed into thoughts of I'm never going to be intimate with anybody, I'm never going to have a family, I'm never going to experience love because I look like this. If I had a face like yours, if I had eyes like yours, I'd be happy. By the time I was a teenager, I hated my face, and I didn't want
that's really
surgery to
Dang.
improve my face. I wanted the surgery to have a new face.
So this series, it's more so, just people telling their life stories. I like that series. Like, it's people that like talk on who they are and just how they grew up. Yeah, that's a good series. I like it. But yeah, like people just need to, chill out because I honestly, I'm like, if Sweet Anita has haters just for literally like, like being herself, like she can't help it. It's like, fam, like go watch somebody else then. Go, do something else with your life. But it's like she's gonna like, she's gonna say what she says because she has like Tourette syndrome. Period. So I'm like, if y'all got a problem with that, it's like, all right, then find a cure for Tourette syndrome and cure her. But until then, it's like this girl at the end of the day is gonna still have Tourette. So it's like, fam, you can't say or do anything about it unless you're working on the cure for it. But if not, then it's like, shut up, leave this girl be and things. But anyways, yeah, that was a good video. It's good to hear her life story and things, and my thing is like I already accepted her, like, day one of knowing who she was. It's like something I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, moving on. What game she playing today? So that's how I see it, or what's she gonna be doing in the stream. It's like I'm not gonna join her stream and be like, oh man, you shouldn't have Tourette syndrome. That's probably the dumbest thing I think I could possibly say to a person with Tourette syndrome. So yeah, I'm like, I don't, it is what it is pretty much. But anyways, yeah, this is a pretty good video. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Sweet Anita, and also subscribe to Lad Bible TV. Make sure you show them love, support, do what you can. Like, subscribe to me too, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching, and peace.